Alright guys, so now what we want to do is fill in between of our bricks. So we're going to find a nice concrete texture online. So I'm going to find something with a lot of noise, something that will fit in nicely with our bricks. So I'm going to go to dirty, something that will fit inside the style of our bricks. So I'm going to use this texture right here. So this one's good because there's a lot of noise information and it will fit pretty nicely with a brick. So I'm going to download the largest version we can. I'm going to save this on desktop. Now you can see we have our texture. We're opening up in Photoshop. So what we're going to do in Photoshop is that we're going to make this into a seamless texture. So I'm going to create a new document. Make sure it's set to pixels. I'm going to set it to 1024 by 1024. Hit create. So now I'm just going to sample a part of this image here. A nice big chunk. So you can see it's a bit smaller. So I'm just going to go back there. Make sure I have a big selection. So basically what we're doing here, guys, is that we're going to copy and paste it, and then we're going to make it seamless. So if you create a new layer, you can do Control, Alt, Shift, and E, and it'll apply image, which basically means that it'll take whatever is existing on the screen and make it into a layer. So now we can delete our old layer. Now we have a new layer, and you can see now it's lined up to the canvas. And that's very important because what we're going to do next is we're going to offset it. And offsetting will not work if it's not lined up to the canvas, if it's bigger than the actual canvas. So I'm going to set to half the amount, 512, 512. And what we're going to do is that we're going to select these seams here. Now if you hold down Shift, you can do a multi-select. Just make it look like a cross. What we're going to do is that we're going to use content aware. So if you hit Shift and backspace and then click on content aware, hit OK, you can see how it tries to get rid of the seams. So I'm just going to do it one more time. Shift backspace, press OK. Alright, so we're just going to break up our image more. We can use the clone stamp tool, or we can use the spot healing brush. Now the spot healing brush, basically you can sample an area of your image by holding down Alt, and then if you paint, it'll paint in that certain section to try to correct your image. So know that this is completely random. You don't really have control of how it reacts, but you can definitely use it to break up your image more, make it look a lot more unique, and also fix certain problems. Now you can also change this if you want. If you left click and hold this button down, you can go to the healing brush. Now the healing brush, you do have to select a sample. So if you hold down Alt, left click, you can sample that area. And this is similar to the clone stamp tool. However, what it does is that it blends in that area with the current pixels. So that's the small difference. I'm just going to lower this, my hardness. So you can see how we can blend different parts of the image on top of each other. Now, if you guys are noticing, I'm actually not working on the sides, because if you work on anywhere near the border, what's going to happen is that you will cause a seam. So this is why I'm typically working in the middle. Now, if you do want to work on the sides, you just have to offset the image again and just work in the middle. But never ever try to work on the corners, otherwise you will cause a seam. Alright Alright guys, so now I'm going to go to filter and going to click on offset. So now we restored our image to the way it was. We can save it now. I'm going to save as a PNG. I'm going to name it concrete. Hit save. And hit OK. Alright guys, so now in ZBrush, what we want to do is we want to create a new layer. So create, you can see a brand new layer right there. Now I'm going to delete this extra layer I had. Now if you ever want to hide layers in ZBrush, what you need to do is just double click on them. And if you double click on them, what will happen is that you'll see the black bar disappear, just like that. So if I want to hide these layers, just gotta double click them. Now, if you double click them, you still have to deselect them so they're not active. But you can see now I have my empty layer selected. I'm going to select on our plane here. I'm going to left click on the background, drag out a plane. Now we're going to replace the poly paint with our concrete poly paint, and we're going to use that as the background. So I'm going to click on edit. I'm going to press F to focus it and center it. We're going to go to texture, import, and we're going to find that texture we just created. Concrete. And now I'm going to select on it. Now while it's selected, I'm going to scroll down here to poly paint. And you want to make sure you click on poly paint from texture. Now this only works if you have about 1,000,000 polygons, right? This paints onto the actual vertices. So what we want to go to is masking. And the option we're looking for is mask by alpha. So what this will do is it'll grab our image and it'll make it into a mask. Now the problem is that our image is a texture and we have to turn it into a mask right here. So if you click on alpha, what you want to do is go to import. So you actually have to re-import your concrete so it becomes black and white and it becomes a proper mask. So you can see now it's black and white in our alpha. So now we can go to mask by alpha and click on this button. So you can see how that masks all the darker values. So now we can go to deformation, and I'm going to use this inflate balloon. Now give it a little bit of volume here, but now you can see that I actually add depth. If I decide to rotate this, you can see the depth a lot better now. You can see all that detail. I'm going to press F to center it again. Now the most important thing, guys, is that you want to make sure on the sides here that you can never see the background. Because if you can see this actual background, what happens is that your height map will not be created properly. Because you cannot create a height map if there's infinite space behind the texture.